Hello and welcome to Primetime Sunday on Focus on Liberia. My name is Dennis Jai and we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In our program today, we have a very special guest, Mr. Yanqui Zaza, and our topic is generating revenues or revenue generation for Liberia. Mr. Zaza, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis Jai.
Thank you so much. We are glad to have you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. This is Focus on Liberia. My guest is someone who has been writing so much. Everywhere you turn, especially on the perspective, you see his article, and he's writing mainly about the economic issues in Liberia. I follow his writing for a long time. In 2009, he published a famous article called The Liberian President Salif's Corruption Tree, and that attracted a lot of readership, and I was one of those. So I reached out to Mr. Zaza to talk about this corruption tree and say, I want to talk about a broader context, generating revenues for Liberia, because it is the lack of revenue generation that gave rise to some of these things that we are talking about. So I want to welcome all our viewers. This is Mr. Yanqui Zaza, and we're going to talk about revenue generation in Liberia. How do we create revenue? What happened? By way of introduction, Mr. Zaza is joining us for the first time on Focus on Liberia. So in a special way, Mr. Zaza, we extend you our ceremonial cola.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Zaza graduated from the University of Liberia in 1977. And he worked at the Finance Ministry from 1978 to 1979. He was recruited as a general auditor of the Ministry of Commerce, Republic of Liberia in 1979, hired as an extension officer of the Small Business of the National Investment Commission in 1980, appointed as deputy director of the Bureau of Reacquisition, Republic of Liberia in 1981. Was that when you were reacquiring the property from the TWP the government?
We were managing after the PRC came out with a proclamation. Yes, sir.
Okay. And he was also appointed director in 1982 of that bureau. He resigned in 1982, giving his resignation to President Doe at that time. And he went to school in 1988. That's the New School for Social Research. He got hired as a tax auditor and the tax division at the New York City Finance Department in 1984. Got a master's degree in 1986. In 1997, he became a certified New York or NYS, New York Stock Exchange, I believe, certified public accountant. He was elevated to a special corporate tax auditor responsible for selecting and recommending auditable taxpayers. He's been doing that for a very long time, and then finally in 2016, Mr. Yanqui Zaza retired. Mr. Zaza, you have a very rich resume, and what I see is on the internet, you're writing mainly about the economy of Liberia. Tell me a little bit more about yourself, anything fun that you want to share with my viewership.
I think, let me use that time to just list some points here that I think very necessary. I think through my work, they might know me better.
Okay.
But I also advise them there are other stories out there. Clavina Parker commented on the corruption tree. Cyrus Bayou, the former press secretary to Ellen, commented also. Dr. J. Christo, former Minister of Agriculture, and I had an exchange on the issue of excessive salary. And my concern was it was not good at the time to be paying $10,000 to people who were ministers of finance, especially when they were select group. That's a disparity that encourages corruption. But let me just switch over to certain points that
we'll get to those points. I just wanted you to tell us something fun about you. You've been in New York, you're from Liberia. Anything extra besides the serious stuff that you want to share?
I do some running around. I eat a lot of toboggan.
All right.
Yes, it's true.
And your name or Yanqui Zaza. People, a lot of people from Lova will say Zaza Zazay, but you are Yanqui. I was going to say Zaza, but it's Zaza.
But if you look on the internet, you'll see a lot of spelling just like mine, Z-A-Z-A. And the reason is, if you go to the Loma book, they spell Zaza Z-E-Z-E.
I see.
I think in my own way of understanding, the missionaries decided to add Y in order to give them that smooth pronunciation to coincide with what they know in terms of pronunciation. For them, Zaza is Zizi. But you know, I remember when I went for training at finance, my professor asked me how I got Zizi from Z-A-Z-A. In essence, he said it should be Zaza. So I say, how do you spell San Francisco or San Jose? How you spell it? And we all laugh because spelling of it could not jive to the pronunciation.
Yeah.
But so quickly, let me just move over to what I have. I have few issues I think that are important, especially for stakeholders and also for students, third parties, and of course, opposition leaders. Number one, if I could ask, in 2018, there was an issue about the status of Liberia. The current president, President George Weah, said the country was broke. The former president said that wasn't true. The country wasn't broke. So what's the real answer?
Yep.
But there were two reports that gave answer to that particular issue. And of course, President George Weah was right. The country was broke and it stayed broke. Former President Ellington Sirleaf wasn't right. And the two reports are one from the 2009 annual report of the central bank. If you look there, the net reserve was 49 million at 2008, but 2009 it jumped to 269 million. How? Why this was possible? Because of special drawing rights. It's a privilege they give you to borrow money. But when they give you privilege to borrow money, that doesn't make it your asset. It's like credit card. When you have credit card, yes, you can use it anytime. But when you balance in your book, you don't include the balance of the credit card as part of the asset. That's what President Ellington Sirleaf was doing. But another picture of that or statement, that's from the IMF. If you look to page 11 of the IMF report issued in June 2019, they said the country was broke since 2016. In fact, the government of Liberia was indebted to the central bank for 260 million, and it has increased to 355 million. But so why were Ellen telling us the country wasn't broke? But you know, in the financial industry, we like to beef up our asset. When you're going to buy the house, you somehow you elevate or at least you increase the value of the asset, thinking that doing that, the bank going to give you a loan. But let's move quickly to another issue. That is the Central Bank of Liberia. For 2019, they reported 3 different figures in 3 different years, and that's troubling. In 2018, on page 14, they said the gross domestic product, the value was, I can say 1 billion, but specifically or 972 million. In 2019, the jump or the increase of about 40%. They said the value of gross domestic product was 1.4 billion. In 2020, they tripled that. They said the value was 3.1 billion. Now, we can't be reporting these kind of numbers and expect the international community to respect us. And I'm saying that, you know, people should take hint of it and make sure that we do the right thing.
Right.
And then quickly, Social Security, the life or the money reserved or kept to be invested for retirees. The government of Liberia is forcing the Social Security Administration to buy bonds, meaning to credit the government. They're going beyond that. They are now saying the government owns Social Security and they collected 6 million as dividend. The government is not the owner of Social Security, rather the employees. Then back to central bank. They are including again SDR in their total account receivable. We shouldn't do that. Let's report the correct amount. They included 29 billion Liberian dollar into the 98 billion to determine what is considered account receivable. Let me also say the central bank, when you put figures out there in terms of annual report, you do not take it down. In my bookkeeping class at Tottenham High, my teacher told me, when you make mistake, you don't erase, you cross over and put the number so that people can know that you made a mistake. Another issue is the cars, the vehicles that we buy. The government is changing vehicles every 3 years because they say the vehicle is of value besides the scrap value. The UNDP is 7 years. When you start getting rid of cars every 3 years, that's not good. You're using a lot of the money to give to people who have interest in lending you money. So we should try to discourage that. We should also encourage the state-owned entities, LEC, National Port Authority, Social Security, to report their annual statement and publish it. There's a law to that, but they are not publishing. Up to today's date, we do not know how much money NASCAP, which is called the Liberian Social Security Welfare Corporation, we don't know how much money they got in the bank. In fact, they rented a building to the government. The government is too poor, they're not even paying the rent. So those are things I'm saying we should begin to look at. Now, I was saying that we can get money, but when we invest into managing some of the lucrative assets, Japan does that. Japan, the Bank of Japan is the 10th shareholder, is at the top because they own 40% of listed companies. In fact, there are 26 companies in addition to Japan that invest in lucrative assets. Now, let me stop there. You want me to go back to the corruption tree now?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And that was a way of warming up. We say thank you for that brilliant intro. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Focus on Liberia. My guest is Mr. J. Yanqui Zaza, and our topic is revenue generation in Liberia. Before that, we want to walk a little backwards, and we start to talk about corruption. In 2009, Mr. Zaza published what is popularly known as the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf corruption tree. And this corruption tree talk about, the web of corruption, and Mr. Zaza can explain that much. And one of the statements he used in that corruption tree was about President Sirleaf, and this is what he said. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is preaching a fight against corruption while she and her family and friends are swimming in corruption. So the link we have here says we want to generate revenue. Here is corruption, but generating revenue can be a way of curtailing corruption. So before we even bring you in to talk about your corruption tree, I want to play a clip here from President Sirleaf talking about the same thing, corruption. That will give us an idea of where we are.
Corruption, I said to you, is a problem. I challenge anyone who says it's with me or my family. I challenge that. We have a very vibrant society, a society that's full of rumors and innuendos, and one in which, people are just accustomed to that. Now, I have to put in certain places where I get the best result based upon talent, based upon competence, based upon integrity. And that's what I do, and I stand the test. I stand the test in that regard and challenge anyone who says it. Now, there may be other motives there. We are accustomed to, in all of our societies, we're accustomed to accusations. We're accustomed to believing that once one is a leader, that leader, doesn't have integrity. But I stand by my record, and I stand by the record of my family very firmly.
Mr. Zaza, let's talk about corruption from the Sirleaf time till now. Corruption and the corruption tree. Because I think that tree you drew, maybe that tree, I don't know if it is growing or he has withered or they cut it down.
Well, Ellen has been very smart in doing what she does. That is, do things without your hands showing. But if you go to the balance sheet of International Bank, Ellen, her friends, including Stephen Kershaw, Ofori, who is now finance minister in Ghana, they had a company, and this company was responsible in establishing the African Bank, or International Bank. Today, that bank, according to themselves, is the most lucrative bank in Liberia. But we think that, like, some lawyers believe that they are the best, but if you know to work your way around, you can become the best. If, for example, all the big companies doing business with a bank, the bank will be very rich. Extraordinary Bernard is the chairman of the board. I'll send you the link and go through the details of what IB, International Bank, and the related companies do. They talk about adversaries. They talk about helping to invest in different places. They are advising countries in sub-Sahara Africa, including, we didn't list Liberia, but I would see how somebody who has an advisory committee and one of their friends is the president and they have problem and they will not get contracts from there. Who are the contractors, or where are the contractors that got involved in all of these multinational activities? You look at what Moore Stevens audit firm said. Out of the 68 concessional agreements, 66 were fraudulent.
Yeah.
66 fraudulent. I mean, if somebody says, oh no, my hand is not in it, I got nothing to do with it. But the son was given 10 million. I think that is in the report, and she said she's willing to take responsibility. I just read that today. In fact, sometimes reported to be 30 million, but we know to be 10 million. What's about the rest farm that was in Lufa? Gaddafi gave money. What happened to the rest farm? You still got the equipment all out in Lufa. Yeah, Ellen knows nothing about it because you can't trace document to her. But if you go to the IB Bank, she said the last time in one of the newspapers that Stephen Kershaw is the majority shareholder. But the balance sheet of IB Bank doesn't say that. It says the majority shareholder is a company in Liberia. But again, companies don't file their statement, so you're not going to see who owns that company. But 86% of that company is owned. Here are your board of directors. Extraordinary Bernard is the chairman. Yes. You got Stephen Kershaw, director. Most of the activities, financial activities, took place. Go to the balance sheet or the income statement and see. They make more profit than most of the banks that were in existence before they came into being. Was that just because they're so good, or because of the relationship to the president? Or in fact that her friend who has a business in Washington, D.C., when Salif goes there, he goes there.
Right. Two things you're saying here. So the first one is the IB Bank, right? You said they're lucrative and powerful and have more money because of President Salif connection. How does that help the bank?
How does that help the bank?
Yeah.
It's easy.
Okay.
If you have two competitors in a society, and one of the competitors happen to be associating with the president of the country, who's the best person if I'm Firestone? Where do I want to put my money? If I'm Metal Steel, Salif was the first to give pickups to the lawmakers. Bribery, she introduced it. When local issue came out, the person, the individual, I don't want to call the name, who gave the money to the lawmakers said the decision came from above me. The other person, Dr. Neon, he's complained that Ellen told him to use certain money. Let's go to what happened to a gentleman, they call Francis Kaba, who was managing director of Social Security, was told to use some of the money to build Unity Party headquarters in Buchanan. When the board refused, what happened? He and Ellen talked, and Ellen convinced him, said, oh, you know, according to what I heard, I don't know the true story. And he wrote a letter that his house should be used as a collateral. When the issue came out, the guy got dismissed. The same way Samuel Booker and Bernie Summerka is suffering today. Is Ellen unaware that she gave directive to Bernie Summerka to use the money? That today she's silent, she can't say a word? She should come out and say, I gave the authority. That's not stealing. I gave the authority because we needed money. But why she's quiet? When some money go missing, a thing was said, Gafouin, and she said she could put her neck on a chopping board. You remember that $1 million that got catch at the central bank, and they prosecuted, you know, insignificant individuals? Are you telling me people who are not in high places will be able to cash $1 million check and nobody knows anything about it? Yeah, Ellen can go out there and say, of course, because the documents are all structured in a way you're not going to see it. Like, for example, the entity that owns 86% of IB Bank, one of the most prosperous bank and lucrative bank in Liberia. The entity is not an individual, it's a business, except that business is owned by that particular individual. But we got no way of saying it because it's an entity that does not file its financial report or publish the financial report for us to know. So,
and that's something you said that I find it hard to believe, that even the public corporations, these entities, they are not required by law to publish their statements and make public, you know, what they make.
I can tell you, Orange doesn't file a financial statement. Lone Star doesn't. The reason is they are private entities. But technically, if we follow laws in other countries, it's a utility companies or our utility companies. They should be filing and disclosing to the public the utility services. Any institution, any business activity that covers significant portion of the population in other countries, they are required to file tax return because they are affecting too many lives. LEC is not filing. They used to file up to 2014. Right now, you don't see their returns on any of the, at least if you go to download, you can see it. In fact, a company that has written a letter to LEC asking them for their financial statement, why they haven't published it. And you go to Ghana, they publish the reports.
So let's go back to your corruption tree. Explain a little bit. And my question is, what has happened to this tree? Are new trees being planted, or is the Ellen tree still there? Here is the corruption tree, and you lay out President Sally at the end and how it is connected to all these different entities, banks, manufacturing companies, etc., etc. Tell me a little bit more about that and what has become of this tree.
You had a logging company that is still there. A management could be changed, individual could be changed. Again, when these companies are not filing returns, you're going to have hard time going to court and say, yes, they are, even if you want to sue them. That's the problem. These companies are not filing and disclosing their returns. If you want to court, maybe the court will compel them, but maybe by then they will have adjusted the information on those documents. And I'm not saying it's criminal. They might have changed the ownership. But at the time, you could see, you know, that these individual or family, Estrada Bernard is the chairman of the board. You become chairman of the board just by being a different individual and you're not a member. It's possible, but usually there's a lot of small companies, you own and then you become chairman. Again, I'm saying to you, if they were truthfully honest to tell us who are the owners, they would have listed the names of the owners. But they put one entity that owns 86%.
Yeah. Does the current president also have a tree? A corruption tree.
Well, I don't want to reach there now, but let's
Okay.
go to one important thing he did,
Okay.
and which tells you Ellen has a lot to answer. The audit firm, Moore Stevenson, reported that 66 concessionary agreements of the 68 were fraudulent.
Right.
If you go to page 14 of the Propo Agenda for Prosperity and Development, page 14 says, no, they were not corrupt. Everything they did met internationally accepted practices. And in fact, it brought benefits to the citizens of Liberia. Are you telling me that Ellen might not have asked we had to help her to cover that up? Can you imagine if that audit report, if Liberians got mobilized and decided to carry that audit report and begin to identify the corporations that were involved in corruption and go carrying the code, don't you think we'll get something?
True.
No. But now we are government. I don't know whether he knows, but it's on page 14. Go to the proposed document, you'll see that it is there. They're saying there's no corruption. But look at another area, the WTO, World Trade Organization. Why did we join the World Trade Organization? Why? How many things are we exporting to believe that we'll have importers who will trample on our rights, and therefore we need to join the World Trade Organization and be protected? But let me tell you, the belief of a lot of the politicians or those who want to succeed that they will renegotiate the contracts, that maybe you can ask Firestone to build tires. I'm not too sure. They need to read and find out very well whether the WTO will allow them. Because if Firestone, for example, you decide to carry Firestone the code, Firestone will allow the court to rule against Firestone, but they will file a lawsuit with World Trade Organization and say you are interrupting their affairs when they sign an agreement with you for 25 years. 25 years has not ended, and you want to again renegotiate after you have renegotiated for over 5 different times. So what was the purpose? But to help the multinational corporations. That was the purpose. And of course, I'm assuming she might have encouraged to put that clause there in order to protect the multinational corporation from legal, decisions that the Liberian people will take. That if an audit firm audited these companies and they said they were fraudulent, we should go to court and change things around. But right now, you got 2 things against you. The WTO is against you, and the government, the current government, is saying there's no corruption. So I'm sorry, politicians, if you're thinking that you will renegotiate, well, you need good lawyers, because I think it's going to be difficult for anybody to renegotiate to tell Firestone that want to add values to tires. And that leads to the issue of generational revenue.
I will get to the generational revenue because
I just want to tie into the corruption issue, please.
Oh, okay.
He said that he will increase revenue from 500 to 1 billion. Also, the new government, President Weah's government, is saying they will increase the revenue from 500 to 1 billion every year to the point they'll get 6 billion. But where are they going to get the money from?
Yes.
I guess they were assuming that they will be renegotiating the contracts. But Ellen has made sure that you can't renegotiate them. Once you tie your hands with WTO, 2, she might have influence to make sure that clause is there. I mean, we should find out who put that clause there. If the clause was put there illegal, the people should be prosecuted.
Right. And I want to really display that. Not that I want to, our folks in the back room, if you get page 14 of the PAPD, we just want to make sure. Go ahead, lend your thoughts.
Yeah, so we're saying that should, because people were saying, if people were involved in undertaking corrupt activities that an audit firm from Europe said they were fraudulent, people should be prosecuted.
Right.
But we can't do that
these
now.
things are even coming up because a lot of things came up. For instance, the Norwegian grant. and it was done on Ellen. Now, the current administration said they're going to pay back the money because Norwegian people say, hey, the 6 million, you didn't use it for the intended purpose, give our money back. They say, yes, we're going to pay. Things like these lend credence to what you are saying, that it could be that the president said you should do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So when Ellen is saying, oh, I'm not corrupt, go to the details of these things and begin to find, why did we rush to become member of the WTO? Why? What's the basis? What are the elements? What are the variables? What were the recommendations from the technical people? What will benefit if we join WTO? Why? When we know very well when you join the WTO, there are 3 arbitrators who make decisions. And a lot of reports are showing that poor countries usually don't win. The multinational corporations win when you go to WTO. So you see, if Ellen said, oh no, I didn't do anything, go to the details.
Right. And while preparing for this interview, I was reading The Guardian and hear what it said. As of now, allegations of patronage, nepotism, and cronyism have continued in Liberia despite a change in government, which came with high expectations to fight corruption. Low salaries are often cited as the reason for petty corruption in the country, especially across all levels of government. Legislative framework has little influence on corrupt practices. What's your take on those statements?
You know, again, Ellen used the Wall Street example to prove to the people or to convince the people that when you pay high salaries, you reduce corruption. But Ellen, no, that's not true. Had high wages being the measures to prevent corruption, then people will not be sitting on Wall Street because they pay high wages. But the 2008 financial crisis was because of what? Because people were just corrupt. In fact, people who make more money are not seeing more.
Yeah.
And when she instituted that's in fact 2009, I wrote an article that look, there was no reason to pay the kind of salary at this time. Or it wasn't good, and it's not good. Okay, you say the legislators. The legislators, if you see them, in my sense, if the president had decided to convince the public that we need to live low because we don't have the money, we should hang our hats where our hands can reach. If Ellen had proposed that, if Ellen was not saying give high salary to people who come from America, you know, because they need adjustment. If we didn't do that, we would have been better off today than what we are. You can blame the lawmakers, but look there. One of the friends, Dr. Will, a colleague, stood up and said, look, the lawmakers are doing the wrong thing because they're accepting bribes to move. They're threatening for him to resign. They're threatening him if he didn't withdraw the statement, they'll fire him like they're doing to Yanqui now. So yes, the lawmakers are responsible. They should carry their own responsibility for being corrupt. But I'm saying the president of the nation, he set an example.
Right.
She started bribing the lawmakers. She started going to locals to give them money. She started paying high wages. You see, when you pay high wages, that's an instrument of corruption, especially when you're not across the board. Few people were getting $10,000 a month, while others were getting $2,000, $3,000 a month. I had a whole sheet in front of me. That's what I wrote the article.
Yeah. Now, on the what I've never heard, you are the first person I must admit. We all talk about the 66 out of the 68 concession agreements that were bogus.
Yeah.
But I have never heard, I have not seen it in the PAPD that is there, that the current government say, hey, it's true. So we try to pull that up. Let me see, Mr. Sia in the back room, if you can read that line.
No. This is a summary. You got to go to the real PAPD.
Okay, yeah. Let me have me at the back room to share that PAPD document, especially page 14. Because this
not you. If you see the real PSPD is 155. This one is about 55 pages. So you should know that's a summary.
Right.
So that's not it.
Where in that document they talk about the 66 that hey, this is not it.
No, in that document, they just said the concessional agreements
Yeah,
that
is that
signed met internationally best practices.
that's what I want to see. Where is that written? That's what
Yeah,
I want to
I just told you page 14, and I think I sent. I didn't.
Yeah, it's the page 14 that I'm showing now.
But no, but I'm saying to you, the document you're showing out there, that's that's a condensed report. It doesn't have the what you're talking about.
Okay.
I went through that already.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is 155 pages.
In the course of the interview, we'll let our
all right, I'm while we're talking, I'll be checking for it, trust me.
Yeah, the folks in the back room. Because so now we talk about the corruption and what is happening. Let's come now to our topic for the day, revenue generation, and how does that relate to the corruption story that we started with?
I'm saying to you that corruption became so prevalent in Liberia when business people started getting involved into managing our natural resources. It became very prevalent. Because why? Businessmen doesn't want to pay a fair share. They always want to reduce the taxes, underpay the employees, pollute the waters. So the only way they can do that is to give brown envelope. So people got used to receiving brown envelope when it started with lucrative assets. That's why Firestone, all along, they didn't have a high school in Firestone until 2006. From 1926, no high school until 2006. 1926. And they say they're helping us to develop because brown envelope were passing around. 1976, Ghana had a tire factory, even though the land they had producing rubber is by far smaller than ours. But why? Brown envelopes were, penetrating the halls, getting into hands. I told you, or I said before, business people think bribery is not a bad deal. It helps to grease the wheel of business. And in Liberia, it's very prevalent. Then came also the other economic sector that is promoting bribery is money from donors. The donors, for a long time, have agreed that, look, we need to help the country. The business people sing and say, oh, no, don't give it to the government. Government officials are corrupt. Give it to us, the private people. We can better use it. We are very efficient, and better results will be coming out. You don't have to go too far. Go to the stimulus package, 30 million. Professor Winston Tapper, former Minister of Commerce, said that it was 9 million that was used for administrative expenses. WFP War Food Program got concerned, and it came and said, oh, no, our administrative expense is worldwide is 6%. But 6% of 9 million, 30 million,
that's a lot.
Is what? 1.8 million. But we end up paying 9 million, which is 30% of the 30 million. How do we pay 30% as administrative costs? But how? It's possible. When WFP got a program, even though they say it has a mean, it could do X, Y, Z, they had to hire local contracts or local NGOs, and the local NGOs have to include their administrative expenses. So you see, when you look at the two sectors, the lucrative assets that are being managed by the multinational corporations or individuals, and the donors' money that is being managed by, again, NGOs, you can see in both areas, brown envelopes are passing. I am saying to you guys that, look, we cannot fight the WFP. We can't fight the World Bank. We can't fight the IMF. But we can do something. IMF and the World Bank are saying we should not add gold to our reserves. We should use FDR. But why are they suggesting that? Because if Liberia increases its gold in the net reserve, then the World Bank can lend us money and they can make money. That makes sure, go to the 2007 Central Bank report. They have a sheet I posted on my Facebook. That schedule detail the creditor, the amount as loan, and the interest. I'm interested in two principal creditors. One was bilateral creditors, and the other one were external banks. Bilateral creditor, the loan or the principal was 687 million. And how much interest they pay? 340 million. But go to the external creditors, external banks, not creditors. The loan was how much? The principal, 223 million. And what happened to the interest? 1.1 billion. And then we still go around and say the banks are our international partners. How is that possible? How can somebody who rip you off, you call them our partners? When last the World Bank ever made any country successful? So yes, they're not interested in for us to get goals, because when we get goal, we increase our revenue. And when we increase our revenue, they will not lend us money because we not need for money. So they are fighting very hard to make sure we do not invest in gold and we should increase our revenue. But before I focus on that, let's go to another area that we can, in fact.
Mr. Yeah, we shouldn't get gold. I'm confused because we have gold. I mean, if you go in Sino County, Bokonjre, there's gold. So when you say they are telling us not to use gold in our reserve or invest in gold, tell me what really that means to the ordinary person.
Okay. Somebody want me, my camera not focus.
You're fine.
You got gold. I think Liberians are aware. You got gold everywhere. You got diamond everywhere.
Right.
They're telling us that government should not get involved in any of these things. Leave it to the private individuals. Okay, what happened? We licensed some of the gold fees. There's some of the gold fees are not licensed. And what is happening now? You got trouble in the different communities. You got people coming from different neighboring countries, digging gold, digging diamond, walking away free. All because we say government should not get involved. And the reason they're telling us that, because if we get involved, we increase our reserve. The World Bank doesn't care if somebody steals our gold. The World Bank doesn't care if we sell cars or we buy cars every 3 years. Because why? It means we need more money from them. We'll have to borrow more money from them. So that's why they don't have interest in us digging gold. That's what I'm talking about. But if we want to dig gold, we will increase our reserve, and community, we can jointly do with the community. They can get 25%, 50% based on an arrangement. Government will take 50% and increase the reserve. The community will get some gold and then build the roads, build schools, build the clinics. Then we don't have to borrow money for the World Bank. That's what the World Bank doesn't want. That's why it goes around and tells people, do not get involved. Government should not get involved. Leave it to the private individuals. The foreign
and you are saying in order for us to generate revenue, government should actually do it. Like I put
they can do it. They can do it as a partner. Like Botswana. Botswana finance its revenue. 50% of the revenue of the budget is financed by Botswana revenue. Even today, Nigeria, Nigeria, they got a lot of corruption there, but bulk of their revenue comes from the oil. 60% of their revenue comes from the oil. Libya, you know it. Saudi Arabia, you know it. Kuwait, you know it. Natural resource, they are getting money.
And that's why I'm confused, really. I didn't know this. I thought that was just like a no-brainer. You are saying government should participate in the gold and diamond business to raise revenue, thereby reducing corruption and the illegal mining of gold and diamond. I really thought that was the case. And you are saying no.
That's what I'm saying. If we participate, if government participate, if we participate, we will reduce the brown envelope coming from those who want to get involved in the gold and diamond.
No, all along I thought we were participating, and you say no, it's not the case.
Government is not participating. Individuals are participating. Show me one gold mine where government is operating. There's none I know of.
So places like Saudi Arabia that have the oil, the government are participating in the oil business, right? But for us, we have gold and we say no. So the only thing we participate. So what's the difference now? Because what's about iron ore?
Iron ore involves a lot of investment.
Okay.
Firestone involves a lot of investment. So maybe let's start with the small how you call it, operational or small lucrative assets. Two, we already signed an agreement with Metal Steel. You can't go change it. So that's why I'm saying certain things we can't do now. Let's do those things that are possible. And participating in the gold field, the Diamond Creek, since those are not licensed out, we can make some money.
And tell me some steps. If today we want you want us to participate, how should government go about it?
Well, I have not been in that area, but I can tell you, if you start a committee and investigate other countries and see what they're doing, it's easy to see. And I'm not saying go and take a gold field that you already licensed to somebody to mine. No, don't do that. But I'm saying there are many gold mines out there, gold fields out there that are not licensed that we can get involved and dig. And the argument is some Liberians will steal the gold, some government officials will steal. Okay, but if you leave it as it is, what is coming to Liberia? The borders are porous. They take the diamond and just sneak out and go to a country and go sell. They don't even report it to the Ministry of Lands and Mines or the appropriate authority to tell them, this is the value of gold. This is why I have to pay. They don't do that. They sneak the gold, and it's easier to carry because it could fit in the bag, it could fit under the gown, it could fit in the pocket, it could fit under the shoe, and you carry it. So that's why if government doesn't get involved, it's going to be difficult to get the appropriate revenue because it's easy to be stolen.
Right. Thank you.
You leave it to the,
What other way can we generate revenue?
Oh, very beautiful. Food. You don't have to battle with the WFP. You don't need to do that. What we can do now, and I'm borrowing this idea from the Liberian People's Party. They've been meeting and discussing policy. They say they should leave the corruption debate to other people, but let's develop policy. They came up with a brilliant idea. They said, look, in fact, World Bank decided that it will be feeding children because when you feed children, they learn better. But we said, no, we want to look at the economic side of that. If the government encourages the community, go to Feasible, for example, Feasible and Zaza, that look from now on, the children should not go to school without something in the stomach. So we encourage you guys to go make cassava farm, yam, potato, banana, orange. When the children, before they go to school, they should eat something. Then also the patients at the hospitals. Let's begin to feed our patients with the food that we produce. Also, the prison inmates, they come from jail, they're all finished. Why? No good food. But we got a lot of food that we can give to them. The communities, the government doesn't have to come from Monrovia to do it. They could do that. All right? If you did that, and most importantly, if you went to the extent to convince government that when you have seminars, the breakfast at least should be local food, banana, cassava, orange. And I can tell you, the government will benefit a lot and the citizen will benefit a lot. In Lofa, for example, we don't eat a lot of cassava. But it will begin to see people will couldn't start eating cassava, then maybe we'll think nothing wrong with eating cassava. So now a Lofa man, instead of eating 3 cups of rice, he might eat 2 or he might eat 1.5. What does that do? Is that you have rice. When you reduce the food insecurity, because a lot of people are finding local food to eat, then government does not have to waive the 200 million that it waives every year because of rice importation. What was the rationale behind waiving the duty or the tax on rice imported? Because if the government add tax on rice, the marketers, the local merchants pass that tax to the consumer. If rice is expensive, the people will demonstrate. So government say, you know why? I'll reduce the tax. You don't have to increase the price of rice. But when there's no food insecurity, you don't need to waive the tax anymore. So you will raise revenue by being involved in producing and selling, and you will raise revenue because government does not have to waive the tax. But what you do there, when the Zogos in Monrovia, when the guys who are selling on the street, running behind passengers with chicle, with one shirt, with one t-shirt just to sell, maybe they will see reason to go back in the interior and do something. The children will not go to the gold mine. I went to Feasible. I cried. Because why? Everybody won't go to the gold mine and make quick money. But if government took over, it would be arranged. We would tell students, if you haven't reached to the age to do a diamond, you got to go to school. But those who are making profits don't care. They
Right.
get anybody. So here we have our children not going to school. They're in the diamond mine, they're in the gold camp, they're in the forestry area working. No school. And then we say we want to develop the country. That's not good for us. And that's why going to the area of using food to raise money becomes very important, you know.
Thank you. And then you talk about it, the local communities, our NGOs. So
Yeah.
what other way we can do that?
The NGOs,
Yeah.
if you can put out a schedule out there, you put out a schedule, see it. For example, I wrote an article, 642 million was allocated for agriculture in 5 years. Agriculture in 5 years. But going around, do you see any evidence that there was any agricultural thing? 5 billion came from donors that has nothing to do with the government revenue. So, okay, yeah, people say they're not corrupt. But look what happened to the money. So only the small people were eating it, and the big guys not eating any money. 642 million. You want to tell me WFP, if the WFP decides not to spend all the money they receive, you think the big guys not going to eat some? Only the small people, right, will eat it. Well, I don't know about that. But let's go specifically to 2017, 2018. In that report, if you can show it, I don't know if you're able to show it. 44 million was allocated by the government. 278 million was allocated by donors purposely for agriculture alone. Agriculture alone. The VFP allocated, or the donors allocated 10 million for 5 counties for agriculture. River G, River Says, Crook, well, this is a summary. That's good. Yeah, there. River G got 23 million. And out of that 23 million, 10 million was allocated for agriculture. Now, you don't have to ask me evidence. The president visited the counties. Did you see anything that will tell you that WFP spent even 10 million or 1 million? I don't think so. You know, River G, you know, and that's what we're talking about. Now, what WFP does, when they get the money, they don't go help the farmers to grow farm or to raise the rice farm, pawpaw, tomato, pepper, oranges. They go and buy the food from Western countries and give it and divide it. Is that good for us? No. Yeah, those are the agriculture equipment. In Lofa, you want to tell me those equipment there, fine. The money was stolen, but why we didn't use the equipment to make farm? We had a technical skill, we had the employees. Why Ellington could not use these equipment to produce rice and bring, mind you, this particular project had a second aspect to it, that by going into rice farming, you will remove a lot of the former combatants from Monrovia to start working on the farm. Gaddafi gave all of this equipment. Look at, see where they are. And Ellen said, no, we must prove that she's corrupt. So who, right now, they can't come out and say who ate the money. They can't prove it. They can't show a record. Look at all the equipment. So if we had used those equipment and start producing, we would take the children from the streets. They'll start going to school because we discipline them. But I'm telling you, Christians, y'all got to be careful. You got Boko Haram in Nigeria. Muslims, y'all got to be careful. You got Al-Qaeda that will recruit people for nothing. So we all got to be careful to make sure our students, our youth get something to do. But if it is not encouraging, they're not going to do it. So if we start a program that is well organized, making sure that we can tell children, if you do X, Y, Z, make to talk to them, you will see they're going to change. And I tell you, they will do good things. We can't continue this way. Look at in the Nigeria, the fighting there, Maryland, the fighting. When people don't have anything to do, I'm telling you, I don't want to use on the word, but you know what happens. What happened to empty heads?
So in other words, you are saying with those WFP and all those people, government and local communities should demand reports from them.
Exactly. I wrote that in one of my articles. How come we're not asking people? Mind you, what did Winston Tapper tell Senator Snow? Senator Snow said that we want a report of the stimulus money, the 30 million. Professor Winston Tapper, who former minister, who is now the director for EPA, reminded Snow that you cannot ask the international organization for a report. You got to use diplomacy. What diplomacy got to do with providing financial report? So we don't ask them. They come and tell us, they come with a brown envelope and pass through and get their contracts. Then they hire local contractors and they end up paying nothing. So you want to tell me all the leaders, 642 million agriculture, no activity can be showing that money was spent for agriculture. And somebody tells me, come and prove to me that I didn't steal. If the fish begins to get rotten from the hair, at least in Liberia, I guess it's different. It begins from the feet. And people who are in high leadership are not responsible. That's the new message from Ellen. You know.
Mr. Zaza, we'll take a short break, and after we come back, we're going to read comments from our viewers, and you can respond to the comment.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is Focus on Liberia. We are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In our discussion today with Mr. J. Yanqui, we are talking about revenue generation in Liberia, and that's one way of minimizing, reducing, or combating corruption through the brown envelopes in Liberia. At this time, we're going to read some comments from our viewers that are following us. We want to say, keep tuned, Focus on Liberia. This one from Abubakar Kana say, wow, congratulations. Yanqui say, my dad is giving you a thumb up.
Thank you, sir.
Alice Jones said, you are correct, Mr. Zaza. We have found a lot of impropriety and corruption with that bank and LBDI. All will be exposed in our investigative report. That's from Alice Chuchu June. He called this a very good interview, and he said, we have said this over and over. It's all corruption. Vincent Kia say, I love your analysis, Zaza. And Emmanuel Jackson say, wow, long time. Ellis June say, you are a financial expert, very ethical, and he likes you. Alfred Anderson say, he's watching. Long time, still safe. These are all your buddies. Petinia Fuller say, why are we selling our land resources to the Chinese? 55 million is nothing to the Chinese. We'll make trillions of our land. Please stop this and get smarter. We are being cheated. We got to get smart now. And that's from our Bettina watching us on YouTube. Cecilia say, brother is telling the truth. Nelson Gate, this is one of the best programs I've ever seen, FOL. Please keep it up. Budu Dwese, Ellen is very corrupt. Sam D. Jackson, how will we participate in Go Business? Are they going to create their own company to compete with private companies? Mr. Zaza, you can answer that, and then I have one more. This one from Mr. Dempster Yala. He said the government of Liberia has cracked on companies like Firestone for child labor abuse in the past, meaning the government is aware of these bad labor practices in the country. In short, why only big companies and not our own people who are similarly abusing child labor at the gold and diamond mines? Josh Nubo, I believe, and other colleagues of yours say, bravo. So I asked you the question before, and someone is repeating that about how we're going to do this or participation in Go Business.
But quickly before I come to that, and remind me if I forget,
okay,
let me address the brother's question about, why we're focusing on multinational corporation. The former president of South Africa, Thabo Mbeki, said 60 billion leaves Africa every year. That 60 billion, 95% of it can be traced to the multinational corporation. Look, in my other life, when we went to audit, they told us to look for the big fish. Why should I be focusing on people who just getting 3%? They're getting crumbs. Why should we be wasting our time in terms of the gold, the diamond, when we talk about all these multinational corporations that are walking away with millions of dollars, forcing us? They are the simple. Now, mind you, another important thing you should take into consideration when it comes to these brown envelope, because the World Bank, the IMF, these multinational corporations prefer a leader that is either dumb, a leader that's either gullible to corruption, a leader that is very scared. Those are the leaders they look for because they can't accept the brown envelope. A leader that is not going to accept it. You know the story of Kwame Nkrumah. You know the story of Thomas Sankara. They killed them. So some people don't want to die. They just give in. But you don't have to go far. Go to the book of John Perkins, Confession of Economic Hitman. He says it out there. And in fact, go to the book of No More Bossman. He says it. He said USAID got more employees in Liberia than the embassy. And they go everywhere to influence decision. The last time I commented on the director of USAID, he said, oh yeah, we built the MCSS school. We built JFK. So my question to her was, oh, fine, you build. What happened to the 927 million taxpayers of America gave to USAID? What did they do with the money? And you saying we should not talk about that. You know, some people who don't want to talk about the multinational corporation because that's their friends. Those are the people they want support from. So they don't want to criticize them because those are the guys who got the money to finance election. Now, what's the other issue you talk about?
Yeah, before we get there, because you said the person, the multinational company will use will be someone who is either dumb, who is not educated. Ellen was none of those.
Oh no, Ellie was scared. Now gullible to corruption.
Okay, all right. So is that piece. The next question is on the go participating in the gold industry or the gold and diamond.
Yeah, it's easy to be done. I'm saying that we can either visit other countries and see how to do it. Botswana, for example, Zimbabwe, Ghana. Ghana now is getting some dividend from their natural resources. Ghana is doing it. There are other countries that are doing it. We can do it. Algeria is doing it. Nigeria has been there a long time. Yeah, even though they're doing a lot of corruption, but most of their money comes from the oil. We can do it. We shouldn't cheat ourselves to say we don't know it. All we need to do is to put the right people there. But the Liberian people have to understand that these people who come and claim that they are good friends of the World Bank, IMF, the UNESCO, be careful. Because, in our other fee, they told us, when you accept a cup of tea From an oddity, you are beginning to have problem, because they will one day offer you something else, another day offer you this. Before you come to yourself, you already in a bucket. But I was thinking about something else to say. All right, go ahead, Chief. Sorry.
No, I agree with you. You eat my rice, you got to sing my song.
Exactly.
George T. Marshall Jr. say you bring a lot of sense to the discourse. One of Liberia's best CPAs.
Thank you, sir.
Let me from the documents you sent me, let me put a few things on the board that you can speak to here. Some diagrams here. One of those is this one. This one give us the counties, their disbursement, and what is left.
All right. Before you go there, I've just downloaded the PDP. I can read it to you, except you don't trust me. Then, of course.
No, go ahead, read it to me and the page so that I can look it up later.
Again, like I said, page 14. Page 14.
Okay.
Quote, the 2018 APRM is African Peer Review Mechanism.
Okay.
Review concluded that the process of securing, negotiating, and implementing these concessionary agreements in Liberia met internationally accepted best practices and brought benefits. I'm saying to you, with that comment by the government, the current government, how are you going to go to court and say there's corruption, there's fraud? Yes, an audit team says so, but your government is saying, I'm sure the legal people look at it, the government is saying there was no corruption. In fact, who's supposed to go to court? Isn't it the government?
Yeah.
I will email this to you when you get ready and send it. But this is there. Now go back to the question, sir.
All right. So by the government saying that, I mean, why nobody talking about it? Why only you find it? What's going on here? People missing it, or what's the point? What's the problem here?
Well, I can talk for myself. I mean, I told people I have interest. You know, I came from the progressive camp.
Oh,
that we don't do anything, but these are some of the things we do. We are saying, let's do the best for Liberia, because let me tell you, I want to advise those who are living here and think this is paradise. You got to think twice about that, because anytime there's no money, people fight. In the house, when you don't have food, your children fight. And they will not want to see their grandparents anyway, because the belief they have is that the food not sufficient, the grandparents going to eat some. So that's why we have to make sure that we straighten our homes. And let me tell you also, the corruption is so rampant that today in Liberia, most of the people there believe that if you go there, you want to do any investment, they believe you took money from the white people and you're telling them that your money. And they would be telling their friend, my man, that your town, that your pepper bush, you better go eat your own. Don't mind that, man. They got money. They got money from those people. They lying to us. That's not their money. That's the perception you have, all because of the brown envelope. Most of the people you go to now.
And it's interesting you said that, because I have a friend. She and her husband started a health center in Liberia, and she's a Loma. So she named the health center after her grandma, a Loma name that sounded like something like Norwegian.
Okay.
That's how it sounded. Like, maybe you'll remember that kind of name that would sound like Norwegian. So you know what happened? So the people started telling each other, oh, don't mind her. She got this money from the Norwegian government, and she's not saying it. As a result, if she send medication, they start stealing it. They say, don't mind her. This money is from Norwegian government. She pretending that that's her own money. So they stole, took until the health center broke down. Yes. So that's just an example of what you are saying.
It's very serious, I'm telling you. People who were trusted before have abandoned the idea of believing in that honesty pays. And again, our president, George Weah, at one program, He said it's on radio, except they're opinion downloading it, that people who got PhD and stay here for 60 years and they ain't build houses, they ain't got car, they're stupid. Meaning, when you get there, you better steal. He's talking to the youth. Talking to the youth. Why did Ellen say that when you give people more money, they don't steal? She knows that's not true. Go on Wall Street. Most of the companies we audited, the people who were the best roles were those who were the managers, the chief executive. In fact, in the business for accounting, they tell you, or auditing, the personnel or the individual is more trusted will end up being the thief in a company. So be careful. If you're running a business, don't trust anybody. Please, you trust anybody, they're gonna tell you something else. And I'm a victim. My family and I, we are victims throughout. Everybody we trusted let us down.
Budu Doe say Africa needs to be careful with China and the West. Budu also say Ellen and George Weah are no exception. I think Budu is talking about in terms of corruption or what, but do you agree?
Well, I think firstly, why did Ellen put her heart behind George Weah? Why would George Weah, who comes from Gibraltar? This guy came with the guys, poor people. Why is he? I can't ask him to say he's a rich man. But what did he do? See the mean advisors around him. Charles Bright, Archibald Bonner, Emmanuel Shaw's.
What's wrong with them?
Emmanuel Shaw's. What did he do? He sued Liberia for an airplane that Liberia owned and turned around and made sure the plane was for him and Doe. And later on, he sued Liberia. Is that the man you should trust at this time when we talk about fighting corruption? Is that the man?
Budu is asking if you are on Facebook, and I responded that yes, you are on Facebook with the name Yanqui Zaza.
Yeah. Say anyway, Zaza, Jojo, Gigi, it's okay.
Sam Jackson say, hi, Zaza, what is your position on government monopoly? Example, LEC is the sole producer and distributor of electricity.
Well, there are a lot of people who believe, again, including the World Bank, that they should privatize LEC. But what happened the last time? You had a new management team operating LEC. What has happened to LEC? Are the people getting lights? Are they getting lights? Or look at the port. The port was given to a new management team. They took the APM. Now, Liberia got four ports. One in Monrovia, one in Buchanan. I will come back to Sam Jackson question. Buchanan, one in
Greenville
and Harper. But the government took the one that is more profitable and leased it with the premise that these guys will make more profit, even though people are complaining that that's a security zone. You don't give it to foreigners. They say, oh, don't worry, these guys will make so much profit. We'll have sufficient money to hire good securities. So don't worry. It shouldn't be a threat. But what are they doing? They asked for raise. Then the port also increased the duty tax in 2019. Cars now very expensive to clear at the port. And people who have clear cars will tell you. So, I don't know who else will say to you that managing LEC when it is done by government is not good. Look around. They are giving 26 countries. Those 26 countries, most of them are managing their utility company, including electricity. By the way, if you go back, there was a study done by LEC, 2017. And they visited, or at least visited, the records of Costa Rica, the Philippines, Indonesia, and some cities and countries in Middle of America. And it was clearly stated that in order to have company like LEC, it's not possible for profiteers to make money. Go in Cowell, or for example, the area of let's say Cowell area, the Congo settlement. the houses are far apart. So it's very expensive to supply utility to houses that are far apart. Companies will make money if the houses are built like Bannersville, Georgia. They make money. But if you go to places like Feasible, where, I mean, right now the houses are all together, it's easy. But if you go to certain areas where one person had 2 acres and they build a house on it, the other person got 5 acres, it's going to be expensive to supply light. So if you took the company LEC and give it to a private individual, they are not going to reach to the hinterland. France tried that. In fact, they created a special price for the big companies in order to subsidize those companies that are going to rural town. In the final analysis, they took the electricity back. Today, France is managing the electricity. Who are the people who negotiated the idea of utility being operated by private companies? Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah.
So if you say monopoly, government is monopolizing the police force. We don't complain. Government is monopolizing the social security force, especially the army. We don't complain. But when it comes to where there's a lucrative profit, then we say, no, government should not have monopoly. Government.
And to that, here what Kafumba is saying, say you seem to be a socialist, big government. Because you are fighting multinationals and the World Bank and against capitalism.
But is he aware what happened in the great United States? They call Biden Sanders a socialist, Hillary Clinton a socialist, Obama a socialist. I don't care about labels. What I want is that what we can do. There are certain things government can do, and there are certain things government cannot do. I'm saying to you, LEC, for example, how will LEC supply electricity in the Congo area? I mean, around Monrovia. I mean, if it is operated by a private individual, if they want profit. In fact, there's an article written about Great Britain that the electricity in Great Britain, the company, if managed by private people, they started paying high interest expense for loans, and they start paying high dividend to the extent now they are cutting social benefits for the workers, and they are increasing the price of electricity in Great Britain.
Yeah. George Noble is kind of agreeing with you here. He says schools were given to Bridge. What's the progress on that? So he's saying no to privatization.
But you see, but again, let's go back to Ellen. You see, and you know, I remember in 2009 when the financial crisis took place, the European countries said something was wrong with capitalism. They called a meeting. Obama did not say anything about it. Ellen went to that particular meeting and said she didn't want big government, she wanted small government. Okay? And it's that concept that the Republicans believe in privatizing education is the concept that Ellen has. Take the schools and give it to the private individuals. But go back to the schools. How many schools are owned by the government? Do you know it? Very few number of schools. Most of the schools are owned by private individuals.
Yeah.
In the olden days, they were between religious institutions and the government. The religious institutions were interested in creating representative or salesmen. So they invested a lot, and through there was a competition between the Lutheran Church, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church. So they made sure their students were good because they believed these students were going to represent them. And government were doing its part. But nowadays, most of the schools are owned by private individuals. There's a report out there that was prepared from 2016 by a global partnership that the Ministry of Education, when it called on principals to report about their curriculum, the principal don't respond. Why? They got brown envelope to carry to the Ministry of Education. So, you know, you that's what privatization does. You give private people the opportunity with lucrative assets. They make sure they got plenty of brown envelopes in their pockets.
And do you know why this envelope is brown? Instead of white or
I don't know how. And the money is green. You should have said green envelope, right? Right. So, you know, but that's what it is. That's what it is. So if you say monopoly, what is monopoly? What is it? If government is doing the best thing for police, And if government, because police servicing is utility, it affects the entire population. So is the army, it affects the entire population. So utility, if you give it to the private individuals, I can tell you, it will be like Great Britain. Even in this great United States, do you think the internet is everywhere in the society? No. CNN, in certain places, you can't get CNN. Because to have CNN, you need to at least spend on certain equipment, certain assets. But if you don't have sufficient people in that community to generate sufficient money to cover their costs, they're not going to go there. So that's what will happen if you say you don't want monopoly. When you get monopoly, government can use profit here and subsidize the losses there. That's why when you have, they call that economy of scale. Government getting involved because they will use economy of scale. They will get profit from Monrovia, but they can share that profit to the people in the interior and therefore people to cover things out. LEC used to give dividend to Liberia before. So was National Port Authority used to give dividend to Liberia before. So it can be done. But Ellen came with this idea, no, we got to privatize because the World Bank, if I don't privatize, they're not going to give me the money I want. And therefore, anything they say is what I'm going to do.
And you mentioned Ellen more times than you mentioned we are. Right? We are is dead now. So if Ellen did it, why is we are not changing it? What do you think?
I think Ellen is still playing a role.
Okay.
I would think so. I don't have half fights. But we didn't win on the silver platter. I mean, in terms of real hard work, yes. But bringing certain people together to support we are. A whole United Party team went to support we are. You think that was just a coincidence? Do you think so? I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm not sure.
Because Ellen knew she wanted something. That clause that is on page 14 is very important. Because if Liberia were to carry these multinational corporations to court, Ellen would have been embarrassed.
Yeah.
She didn't want that. That's why she fought hard to make sure somebody is there. And she's going to fight hard to make things we are. But mind you, in fact, I'm hearing that you can't find records now. The same way they brought down the 2018 report from the central bank, most of the reports are not available anymore. In fact, it was during early administration, she stopped all of these state-owned entities from publishing financial reports. I got 2014 financial report, LEC, National Port Authority, and LPRC. Now you don't find it. Why? Oh, she's not involved in corruption. But what happened to the money in the cash that LEC had? How much do we know?
Thank you.
That is there or who used it? Okay.
And Judge Nubo say Ellen is still president. Well, Judge, please come and defend that statement. Because Mr. Zaza, thank you so much. I think we've had and I can't wait to have you back. My viewers will agree with me.
But don't forget, I'm going to email the proper agenda to you. Go to the page 14, please, and send it to your people.
Definitely. Another thing that we're going to be looking at very soon is people talk about the economic crime court. How really is that going to be? You know, because you need to find those documents. You are saying
exactly
those documents are not there.
But another important thing is by delaying the investigation and you're not going to court, they got something they call statute of limitation. Then when you file a tax return, after 3 years, the government can't run behind you and you can't ask for refund. That law is in Liberia too.
Something more quickly I want to bring to your attention. This is from Elliot Wilson. He said, "Thanks for your insight. We were supposed to save Liberia. What happened to us? I mean, the progressive. Don't change the subject. Don't change the subject, Wilson. We're not talking progressive. We're bringing back."
I can address that. But I want to thank you very much for whatever you're doing at the university there. We will look at the reports later on. And I hope you can encourage some of the people he knows in the government to begin to file correct information. It will help us. Please, Brother Wilson, I beg you. And encourage the president. He will do very well when he begin to make sure that we got gold deposit so we can continue to borrow money.
All right. This one from our own focus on Liberia person here, William King. He said, if I may think, if I may, I think Mr. Zaza is referring to an oligopoly for LEC because the capital cost of electricity is too high for a private company to raise its money and not get designated area whereas only it can collect revenue. And yes, the government will determine the rate to charge. Dempster Yala, another progressive like you, say, thank you, Dennis, for pointing the same thing out to my brother Zeze about continuously pinpointing Ellen's weaknesses and now we's. Budu wants your email.
You have my email, just send it to him. You have the right, give my email to anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let's conclude. I know we started with corruption, we linked that to revenue generation and the way forward. I want you to wrap that up and give me your concluding statement. Something that somebody will go home and say, even though the program was over an hour, but this is the one thing that I remember Mr. Zaza said tonight.
I tell you, if we begin to eat our local food, go to Nigeria, they eat their local food. Go to Ghana, they eat their local food. You go to Liberia today, you see Burger King. It might not be the same Burger King or the same franchise. Bread. Why? Chicken feet. I took picture of one. I went to the market. I took picture of it. And you can see that chicken feet might be something that is obsolete. It's no more good. But they send it to Liberia to feed us. Why can't we begin to eat our own food? We want to be patriotic. We got to start. We cannot develop Liberia if we want to live like people in New York. So if we start insisting on doing the things the right way and appreciating our own values, we will do better.
Thank you. Here is Ada has a challenge or to complement what you're saying. Sam Chia D. Jackson said, please bring back Zaza or Zeze, and I would like to serve as a guest to your show. So the two of you, please come back.
Okay, thank
you.
And
Mr. Jackson, you have Zaza's email, and you also have my email, focusonliberia@gmail, or inbox us, and we'll set something up. Here at Focus on Liberia, we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. And we want to hear from everybody because in the words of Dr. H. Bomber formula, he said, our mom now gone. So it's better we talk this than fight. So we want to bring more and more people to engage, to talk, and we should have a very healthy conversation. I want to thank you, Mr. Zeze, the author of the Salif Corruption Tree. I hope, I don't know who's watering that tree now. It's supposed to be dead by now, but it's still flourishing.
But look at the bank. It's the most
thank you so much. Budu say, call you a born genius. And Kafuma say, thank you to both of us. Thank you so much for coming, and we want to have you back, especially with Mr. Jackson. If both of you come back, and we're here, and we're going to bring it to our people. We want to appreciate all our listeners, our viewers, and even those who are going to watch later. Keep following us on all social media platforms. Tomorrow we have a presidential hopeful who's going to be here to tell us about his plan. That's Dr. Telfo Amos. He's going to be here. He's one of those, you may have not heard of him, but he's running to be president, and he's going to be right here on Focus on Liberia to tell us his plan and why we should believe that he's a serious candidate. Until then, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Every day, before we close our broadcast, we would like to remind our listeners that we are all Liberians. Whether you believe that President Salif is still in power or not, we are still Liberians. Whether you believe everything that Mr. Zeze has said, you believe LEC should be privatized or LPRC or not, whatever side you stand on, we are all Liberians, and we must do whatever it takes to make our country the glorious land of liberty. Good night, folks, and God bless you.
We are Liberians.